This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Everybody, Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk Football Huddle right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network as our marching band brings us in tonight. How are you? Guys, the 2021 football season continues to roll on, and October is turning out to be much like September. Hello, Dave Guyette. How are you? You know, look at this past weekend. I'm going to bring Mark Mancini from Mancini Media in a second, but I mean, this past weekend got a lot to talk about again. You know, the topsy-turvy world of college football is still topsing and turvying, but yeah, we're going to talk about Oregon too. You got Alabama, you got Georgia starting to separate themselves, you know, so the good is still the good. The great is still the great, really. But more upsets. Cincinnati over to Notre Dame, not really an upset. Cincinnati was favored in that game, but Cincinnati going to South Bend, Indiana. Cincinnati, biggest win in program history. They got to be reckoned with. Oregon, losing to Stanford. Kentucky beating Florida. I kind of liked Kentucky, man, but I thought Florida was going to get over the hump here. And you could see Mullen on the hot seat in Florida, possibly. Although they were supposed to be in a rebuilding year anyway. The bottom line is college football, still college football. The great stories are still there. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to assume this is Mac McGrath and not Linda, but either way, we don't talk about UConn. They did have an exciting game against Vanderbilt last weekend, which I don't know that we'll get time to talk about. We'll do our best, Linda and Mac. Guys, without further ado, let me find the right banner and get our esteemed colleague, Mr. Mark Mancini, in here. I got too many banners tonight. I can't find the right banner. You might not get a banner here, Mark. There you are. Let me bring him in. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. How are you, my friend?
Well, first of all, I'm on the most popular show that's sweeping the country here on Wednesdays and Sundays, and I'm so blessed to be a part of it.
You're on Jeopardy?
I don't know. I got a bunch of guards outside my door here to protect me from the fans of Los Angeles.
Listen.
Because I think I've taken a blowtorch to their whole stadium out here at Dodger Stadium tonight. But other than that, I'm doing good.
You better escape under the veil of darkness tonight. In the middle of the night. You should leave town like Robert Ursay left Baltimore years ago, never to be seen in LA again.
Gonna feel like Chevy Chase and Fletch.
Well, for you younger folks out there, that's a reference to a very funny movie too many years ago to remember, I guess, right? Welcome, Mark.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, my brother. And boy, I'll tell you one thing. You said it in the beginning. It's Alabama and Georgia, and then we're going to try to figure out what other two teams are going to join them in the dance here.
It's going to be it's funny. The year starts to look different. Alabama, looks like they might be vulnerable, but now they're just I got fooled into thinking Arkansas had a chance against Georgia. I got fooled into thinking Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss had a chance against Alabama, and they just got run out of the building, both of them.
Well, not only that, look at Nick Saban. He's 24-0 against his assistants, and who's killing who to get the popcorn ready? Lane, I still think it's some burnt popcorn there at Ole Miss.
It's very funny. And you know what? Ole Miss and Arkansas are probably still going to have great seasons. They could have one loss and play in New Year's Day bowl games, and they're going to have gotten routed by the best two teams in the country. And it's good. We're going to be finding out whether are we going to have another 4-game playoff where it's just 2 blowouts in the semifinals? It could be
so. I'll tell you one thing. We're trying to find out what the Pac-12 is going to look like after Oregon, we thought was going to be a contender, looked more like a pretender with Stanford. And I don't know. I'm still high on Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. They can easily be 6-0 after trouncing Nebraska this week. So if he can get past Ohio State and put that in the rearview mirror, I don't know, man. I like Michigan. Possibly.
Let's before we jump ahead here too far, let's kind of look back at last week. What were your big takeaways other than, obviously Alabama and here's mine. Obviously they separated themselves, right? Cincinnati's made themselves a force to be reckoned with. The committee for this playoff, if Cincinnati manages to run the table, can no longer, although Indiana's hurt their case a little bit by not having a good year. But still, they went to South Bend, Indiana, and beat Notre Dame. And no matter what year we're talking about, I don't care if Jerry Faust is the head coach of Notre Dame, it's still a good victory on your schedule. And they're going to have to deal with Cincinnati if they run the table here.
Well, what you're forgetting is Wisconsin here. If you can let Wisconsin play 2 quarters of football instead of 4, they'd probably be pretty much unbeaten too against Notre Dame and Michigan here. They just can't seem to get their act together, to say the least. So I think when you look at Notre Dame, I've always said Notre Dame's a hype train. Some people beg to differ, but Cincinnati went in their backyard and took it out. And I don't know if they escaped the touchdown Jesus statue, taking that back to the Queen City too. But boy, I'll tell you, they went in there and man, that was impressive to say the least. And the other thing that was impressive was first time in 6 years, Arizona State going in the Rose Bowl and taking out the Bruins.
I knew you'd
the Bruins, have got to be really looking at themselves here too.
I knew you'd skip about 10 other really good games to get right to that game.
I'm revved up.
Your boy Herm gets a big win. Yeah, you know what though, Mark? The whole thing now is with that Pac-12. We'll jump to that. With Oregon losing to Stanford, and everybody else beating each other up. UCLA can't win. Even at home against a good Arizona State team, but they got to win those games. The Pac-12 is going to be on the outside looking in at this playoff again. I don't care if Oregon's got 1 loss and 1 at Ohio State. They're going to have a very hard time, I think, putting up a case to be a part of that Final Four. Again, assuming things play out as we think in the SEC, and the Big Ten has got 4 real contenders, and then you got Cincinnati in the mix.
Well, let's be honest here. I mean, when you look at the SEC, the 5th team in the SEC can roll probably the top seed in the Pac-12, including my Devils of Arizona there. But, this is the problem with the Pac-12. I mean, they want to be, looked at on the same level as some of these other power conferences, but nobody takes them serious. I mean, this was another game late at night in the East Coast. Who's sicking up till 11 o'clock to watch Arizona State, UCLA? They hype it up, and now they're trying to sell the slogan, Saturday late night specials out here on the Pac-12 network. Give me a break. What is this?
The Pac-12.
Are you trying to keep up with Saturday night's main event with the WWE late night special? Come on.
Pac-12
I'm not buying that.
Pac-12 After Dark. That's how ESPN tells it.
Yeah, After Dark specials, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's asleep after they witnessed Alabama taking Ole Miss and some of these other great schools out there. They're not watching this After Dark special.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm doubly stupid because not only did I stay up and watch UCLA in Arizona, but I bet UCLA. So how stupid am I?
Yeah. And the problem is you're probably getting up in the morning and your wife's having breakfast there and you're getting up late because you stayed up and watched that debacle.
The problem is I don't sleep. So I'm still up at 5:30. It doesn't matter if I go to bed at, 2 in the morning. I'm still up at 5:30 for crying out loud.
Let me tell you something. When you're watching that game, boy, Daniel just shredded that defense with like 265-year bombs there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. What was UCLA doing, playing a prevent defense?
Chip Kelly, and we're going to get to this in a little bit when we talk about some coaches on the hot seat. But Chip Kelly's going to find himself in a very hot seat pretty soon. Some other games of note this last weekend. Ohio State gets back on the beam with a blowout at Rutgers, who'd played pretty well against Michigan and some other games early in the year. And Michigan, as you mentioned earlier, they have a nice win at Wisconsin because Wisconsin can't put 4 quarters together.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, all of a sudden, we thought it was Ohio State and everybody else. Now this league has got contenders. Ohio State's still alive, even with that bad loss against Oregon. Michigan is undefeated. We'll talk about that Nebraska thing in a little bit. I got a feeling there, but you got Penn State, who's playing tremendous football, and James Franklin's team is on all cylinders. Iowa looks like one of the best teams in the country. When their offense clicks, they're almost unbeatable because their defense is one of the better in the country. So, you got, again, we keep talking about it. It's going to be Georgia and Alabama unless the earth, falls off its axis here. I can't believe both those teams, no matter what happens, won't be in the playoff. So I think it's possible. And let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about, we're talking about the Big Ten. We're talking about the SEC. We're talking about Cincinnati. There's a real possibility to me that 2 Big Ten teams get in with 2 SEC teams. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that past anything. I mean, I think Michigan, the way they're going, if they can keep it going and knock out Ohio State, I think Michigan's going to be one of those teams standing with Georgia and Alabama. And who knows? When you look at the other one, it could be Cincinnati. I mean, there's going to be some interesting thoughts here. Like you said, Iowa. I mean, it's hard to figure. But you're right about one thing with the Pac-12. Even if you run the table, you're so far down the ladder now. I mean, you got a few weeks in October, and then you're getting into November. Good luck with that.
I got it. It's going to be very hard for the committee to explain if 2 Big Ten teams get in. One's got to have a loss, right? They can't all be undefeated. A one-loss Big Ten team gets in there against that undefeated Cincinnati. Yeah, either way, I think if Cincinnati gets left out, the 12-team playoff is going to be in play next year.
Well, and not only that, what would be interesting out here at the Rose Bowl, if Arizona looks like they'll be the best of the best, which I think, and whoever drops the ball over there with Michigan and Ohio State, you can have an Arizona State Michigan or an Arizona State Ohio State in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting. The New Year's Day bowl games are going to be very, very good this year because I think the Big Ten's got a good representative that's not going to be in the playoff. I don't even remember who the playoff, the semifinal games are now. I think it's the, I feel like it's I know it's the Cotton Bowl. It might be the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl. I think are the semifinal games. So you're going to have really good matchups in the Rose Bowl. You're going to have really good matchups in the Sugar Bowl because there's some really good SEC teams, I would say, that won't make the playoff. There's some really good Big Ten teams that won't make the playoff. And then you got the Pac-12, who's got to have a team in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
well, not only that, you and I grew up with bowl games they were all on, January 1st, Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and all this. And now we've got the Cappy Parker Fried Chicken Bowl. We got, this bowl, that bowl, and I mean, it's the Liberty Bowl. And every time my Panthers seem to go to these bowl games, I'm saying, why are you taking a team that's on the Mendoza line to a bowl game? It's unbelievable. And the Panthers always seem to fall in North Carolina to play these bowl games for some unknown reason.
Well, there's way too many of these bowl games anyway. I mean, nobody cares about 2 5-5 teams playing on December, 23rd. Nobody cares.
Not only that,
it's all to fill ESPN's TV schedule.
Well, when you look at it, I mean, the stadiums aren't full. It kind of looks like Halloween where everybody's dressed as an empty chair. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's just, I mean, again, I don't see it going the other way because, again, it's TV money that floats the bill. And as you said, nobody in the stands. Who cares? Yeah. The Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium, nobody cares.
The janitor's over there and no pun intended, he's done, cleaning the restroom 17 times. Nobody's been in it. Hey, grab a seat. sit near the TV cam so we can, see some more fans in the stands.
Yeah. Anthony, I'm going to have a little comment on this Ohio State Maryland game here when we get talking about this week's games. What else? Any other takeaways from last week, Mark, that make sense to you? We're getting heavy into conference play now.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Pitt, if they didn't put up close to 80 on New Hampshire, they sure went to Georgia Tech and put like 49 down there. So unbelievable in 2 weeks. I mean, these guys are probably averaging somewhere about 60 points a game.
Oh, how bad? But how bad is that coastal division of the ACC?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
it's terrible.
It's whoever I look at. I think it's entirely possible to me. We had obviously Larry Sorensen, the color analyst for Wake Forest, on last week. I'm going to try to have him on next week before I'm off for a week or whatever we got to do on it. And, they won a big game against Louisville. Louisville been playing very, very well. They won a nice close game against them. They may be the best team in that Atlantic, with Clemson struggling. Clemson could run the table yet, still get to the ACC championship game. But I don't see anybody in that coastal division putting up a fight against the Atlantic myself.
27-24. What Larry Sorensen has to do is keep the mojo going.
Yeah.
Do not miss a week of TGI Sports Talk, buddy. Keep them Deacon Demons going, buddy. That's the thing, what you got to, look at here. And I'll tell you, the other team is, and people aren't giving them credit. I like what Sarkisian's doing with Texas, man. Keep your eyes on the Longhorns. It's a long-term effect there, what he's building.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, that brings up, since we're going to start talking, and we can talk about the conference conferences a little bit as we go along here, because I want to make sure we jump into the games. We'll start with the game you just brought up. I mean, we got the Red River rivalry. Red River, that's hard to say 4 times. Red River rivalry, which I hope, by the way, when they move to the SEC, because there's so many teams there, they can't play each other every single year. They can't eliminate games. You and I have talked about this in the past, how they've eliminated a lot of these great rivalry games. This one can't go away. And this is going to be an interesting game this weekend.
It can't go away. And let me tell you, when Texas and Alabama play, or you get Oklahoma and Alabama, or Ole Miss and Texas matching wits, are you going to watch anything else? I mean, the SEC is going to be, it's going to be like the main Saturday night's main event every week, and everything else is going to be a bunch of court jesters coming out for the main event.
Yeah. Well, this game, these teams still are playing in the Big 12, right? And this is a big game in the Big 12. This conference is wide open. Oklahoma's not playing well. They're undefeated. Not playing well. Shane Rattler's having his struggles. I think Oklahoma State's underrated and may come away with the conference championship. But the Texas Longhorns, as you said, since they got beat by Arkansas, have kind of got their act together under Steve Sarkisian, and the offense is just kind of rolling. This is going to be a big game this weekend.
Well, he's really installed. He's probably brought the Armenian food down there in Austin. Everybody's having shish kebab dinners, rice pilaf. Players are buying into it. He's changed the culture there. I love this guy. I liked him when he was at USC. They railroaded him out. I liked him at Alabama. This kid's a good kid, man. He's going to turn that program around. And I'll tell you this right now. I think Texas will come back to the big dance before, USC does.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a surprise in this Big 12 in the conference championship game. I think you're going to see Oklahoma State playing Texas, and Oklahoma is going to be in the outside looking in. That's going to be my long range prediction for the Big 12.
Yeah, and the other surprise would have to be BYU. They're amazing. It's unbelievable, BYU. When I look at BYU and the Utahs and when you play these teams and you start playing in their backyard, anything can happen. The weather can change. Could be a snowstorm, a windstorm, whatever. Well, and you very rarely get out of there not being in a good fight.
Well, like I said before, they'd be in first place in the Pac-12 South if they were playing in that league, because they'd be 3-0 over there. They beat all those teams. They beat Utah. Yeah. They beat Arizona State. They beat who's the other team they beat out there?
There's another one.
Gosh, I lost it.
And Fresno State, what happened to them? You got to get Hawaii off your schedule.
Nobody wants to go out to Hawaii and play. It's terrible, terrible, terrible.
Luau's, great weather. Come on, man. Stop going to Hawaii.
Yeah, there's two. Well, they got to go there, I guess, as long as they're in leagues. But what else? So we got some other big games. I want to jump on a game because let's talk. We were talking about the Big 12 earlier. Ohio State. Anthony Price wants to talk about Ohio State and Maryland. I'll tell you what, Maryland. I had really high hopes for Maryland. I thought Maryland last week was going to give Iowa at home all they could handle as a 4-point underdog at home, and they got absolutely run out of the building by Iowa. Maryland, I think, is a pretender. They're not for real, and I see Ohio State just rolling it up again this week because they need some convincing wins here, I think, going forward.
I definitely think on the same lines you do. I don't know what happened to the Terrapins. They're licking their wounds, and they're trying to put it behind them. But, boy, were they exposed. In your backyard, you were exposed that bad. It was right up there with the Cincinnati Notre Dame game. You can't come out and lay an egg like that. And, I think Ohio State's going to keep this thing going, and we're going to see a clash with Michigan State. Michigan, that's going to be for the marbles here. Harbaugh gets his revenge.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think, since we're talking about that, we'll jump to Michigan. Michigan's got off to a good start. I think Michigan's got to be very careful this weekend. You talk about trap games. They're going to Nebraska. Nebraska's starting to find their identity. The cultural change is starting to come along. Scott Frost is a little, his seat's cooling off a little bit. That team's righted the ship, and they're 3-3 after a horrible start. They blew out a really well-coached Northwestern team last week. Is Nebraska ready to?
Well, I'll tell you, I've never been to Lincoln. I've had a friend that went through there, and he said, man, when Nebraska's playing at home, a $50 motel will start costing about $450 and change. And I will tell you this, they love their Cornhuskers. It could be a trap game, but I think, Michigan knows what's at stake. They go in there. It's going to be a close game, but they pull this game out to keep their record unblemished.
Harbaugh's done a good job of cooling his seat off as well.
Yeah.
Another huge game with huge ramifications is Penn State going to Iowa. And, both teams are in the top 5, at least in the ESPN poll. I don't know where they are. Let me see where they are in the coaches poll, which is what I've been paying attention to here. Both in the top 5, 3 and 4 facing off in Iowa. Huge game with ramifications. They're actually they got a grudge because they're all pissed off, excuse my French, at ESPN for not bringing game day out there for that game, and they're going to the Red River rivalry because they think that ESPN's in bed with the SEC and trying to prop up Oklahoma, Texas. I think that's the right choice. I'm sorry, college football fans. If you're a game day fan, I'm a huge game day fan, and I always kind of predict. I know ahead of time. I try not to look. I try to predict Saturday morning where are they going to be. Now I know this is where you got to be. You got to be at the Red River rivalry. But this Iowa Penn State game is huge with tremendous ramifications in the Big Ten and the playoff picture. How do you see this game, Mark?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I've already got one city where I got to have security guards. I don't want to have a second city that I'll be debuting there in 3 weeks at WWDB in Philadelphia. So I'm going to be nice to Penn State and Philadelphia. So I think Penn State will figure out a way to win this game. Close game, but I think Penn State finds a way to win it. And, boy, it's nice to see that program back on an even keel. When you think of Penn State, you always thought of Saquon Barkley. You thought of Todd Blackledge. You thought of Joe Paterno. Great things. I'm going with the Nittany Lions.
Wow. I think I'm going to be against you here. I like the Hawkeyes here. I really do. I think they're in a great spot. I think they got the offense moving, and they got an offense to keep up with their defense. And I think they keep the chains moving towards the Big Ten championship game. That's what I think. And talking about that, you're looking at when you look at the Big Ten, you're looking at again that gosh, the East is loaded again here, and the West is very weak. Iowa's going to walk their way to the Big Ten championship game.
That's the problem. when you haven't really been tested all along, you start waltzing through it. Beware, man. And we saw this a few years ago, if you remember. Washington played Alabama. They clipped it close in the first half, and people thought, oh, Washington's big bad coming out of the Pac-12. And it was total domination by the Crimson Tide there, and they wore them down. And that's how you do these things. You start wearing those corn-fed boys from Iowa down. Who knows? But I like Penn State, man. I really do.
This is the last test for Iowa before probably the Big Ten or the Big Ten championship game, because they won't lose a game. Their schedule is pretty soft after this. So this, if they get past Penn State, they're going to go undefeated to the
puffs and bottom feeders the rest of the way.
You can only play the guys on your schedule, though, buddy. Now on the other side, the East is loaded.
Yeah.
You got Michigan State undefeated, Penn State undefeated, Ohio State undefeated in the conference with the one loss, as we know, to Oregon. You got the pretender probably in Maryland, but God, even Rutgers and Indiana can beat anybody on any given Saturday.
Wow, that's a loaded. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is football here in this one too. It's too bad when you look at Maryland, they took a step back, and you're right, Indiana. This is a loaded. I mean, you can't really lose a game, or you're dropping notches here. So, but here's where the coaching experience comes into order. And this is where I think, Harbaugh's learned his lesson there in Michigan. Harbaugh's built teams wherever he's played, whether it was the NFL, Stanford. I mean, and it's taken a while at Michigan, his alma mater, but the guy's a winner, man. Look at his brother. They come from a winning family tradition of football. They
do. He's taken it probably more heat than he really ought to at Michigan.
Hey, a few years ago, if one of those Colts gets you a touchdown, they beat the Steelers, and they're going to the Super Bowl.
A couple of years ago, that was like I think I was like 20.
Well, I haven't used my Prevagen right now, so
Prevagen, I have decided, should be the major sponsor of all my shows. Just a couple of comments before we jump off the Big Ten. Kenny Gifford, welcome, Kenny. Good to see you tonight. He thinks Iowa's, and you know what? He's not wrong. Iowa does seem to lose in a big spot somewhere every year. 1 year it was in the playoff, but they do seem to lose somewhere, and he thinks Penn State's looking good. I do too. I think it's going to be a great game. I just think Iowa sneaks it out.
Kenny's great, man. He said, I've seen the Field of Dreams. I've had enough corn to last me a lifetime. Let me enjoy some cheesesteaks, man.
Well, speaking of corn, he also kind of agrees with me that Nebraska's now. I'm not sure if he's saying Nebraska will put that Michigan to rest, or he might have missed printed. It might be to a test. Yeah. Either way, I think, again, that game's going to be close. What else we got on the schedule? This
USC and Arizona. UCLA and Arizona. USC and Utah. Good one.
Let's jump to the Big Ten. What league is that? Pac-12. Too many leagues, man. Where the heck is the? They don't even put them on the schedule anymore. Oh, there they are. Never mind.
That's going to be a good one. USC and Utah. I like that one. The UCLA Arizona could be.
Arizona stinks. UCLA's got to bounce back in a big way this week.
Can you imagine if Arizona wins that game?
Oh, wow. Chip Kelly ought to get fired right after the game if that happens. I mean, good grief. USC's got to start to get some momentum going here. They're up and down like crazy. Got a disappointing Utah team coming into the Southern Cal to play.
Yeah,
people
were excited. They beat Colorado, and I said, "Come on, guys, have you been going to Spain and watching Run into the Bulls here? Come on, man, how do you get serious beating Colorado like that?" But we'll find out. USC, I don't think is going anywhere. Interim coach, I think the rumor has it, and I don't know how true it is, that they might open their wallets to get Fickle in there.
I don't know that he wants to go. He's now that, if they weren't going to the Big 12, I'd say yes, but I don't think Cincinnati can afford to let him walk away heading to the Big 12 in a couple of years. So that'll be interesting. It will. Your team, by the way, has got, Stanford has beat some good teams this year and hurt some people badly as far as ranking goes. They're going to have Stanford at home. I do like Herm and the boys this week to come away with a victory.
Well, Stanford went to USC, punched them in the mouth, came back home, and I don't know if they were, reading their headlines, or if it was like a 15-minute car chase here, they laid down against UCLA and then they punched Oregon in the mouth. So this will be an interesting one. I still like Arizona State, man.
I just put this comment up since Kenny's still got a couple things going. He says the rankings are for people to talk about too many teams undefeated and overlooked. Yeah, I agree. You know, we talk about this all the time. The rankings probably should have started last week, not, you know, in the middle of August. And it makes some teams have to fight their way back. But there's been a lot of teams that have flown up the polls this year. You know, Penn State started back a ways. Iowa started back a ways. They're the top 4. So. And it does matter.
And not only that, if you're not in the top 10 by the end of October, it is tough to make up that hayway unless everybody starts losing and you start winning a championship game. It's really tough to move up the last month, the rankings.
It can be for sure. And, you know, the problem, Kenny, is the rankings do matter because that's what's going to put these teams in this playoff. Just looking for say something funny while I look for a name here.
Well, and that's it. You know, and Kenny sees it. I mean, that's basically it. Look at the teams that just really have fallen off the wayside here. The Huskies of Washington. I mean, this is a team that, you know, where, you know, Don James left that program in good shape, and I don't know what's happening, you know, with this football team. Do you?
Well, Peterson had a good run there, I think, for a couple of years. He had him in a playoff at least once, I think twice. I mean,
one of them was with the Alabama, but since him, I mean, what's going on here, man?
Oh,
what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, they've been through, well, since Don James. It's been a long time since he's been gone, but this is a program with some tradition to it, going back to the Don James era and a national championship, I think, back in. Gosh, what was it? 92 maybe? Yeah. Long ways. Let's see what else we got to top 20 talk about. Top 25 before
was that the war? I'm trying to think who was in that one. Was that Warren Moon? No.
No, they didn't win. They won a Rose Bowl victory against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Warren Moon, but they didn't win.
I can't think of it.
Was gosh, I want to say Steve Pelor, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. That was, I remember that one.
So a couple other games of interest. Interestingly enough, both the teams that we talked about who were put in their place by Alabama and Georgia are facing off this week. Arkansas and Ole Miss in what ought to be an interesting game. Arkansas defense against Lane Kiffin and that, go get them offense at Ole Miss. That's going to be an interesting matchup.
Well, I like Lane Kiffin. He takes the, heat off his team and all the weaknesses and everything and directs it to himself, whether it's, telling everybody to get their popcorn ready and all that. So, Kiffin's selling tickets at Ole Miss, that's for sure. And I like this team. I mean, he's building something there. Keep your eyes on him. I've said it before. This is a dangerous squad moving forward. I look at them like I look at Texas, the Longhorns. Two great assistants that worked with Nick Saban. Texas and Ole Miss are not teams that you look past. You're going to get a game with them from week to week. Unfortunately, when you go against Saban, it's not coming out that way you think it is.
Yeah, the problem in the SEC is that the league is loaded right now, I think, with Kentucky's really good, Ole Miss really good, Auburn's better than we thought they'd be, Arkansas is good, but the inevitable, and there's no bigger disappointment in the country, by the way, than Texas A&M. We'll talk about that in a second. But the inevitable is it's going to be Alabama and Georgia in the championship game, and there's nothing I can see that will stop that.
And LSU is so banged up and everything. I mean, it's tough. I mean, Orgeron's going to be 2 years removed from a national title if he doesn't do something this year. He's
in trouble.
Yeah.
Probably in trouble. We're going to talk quick if we have some time about some guys we think are in the hot seat. Let's jump through the rest of this. You got Georgia. Georgia's going to play at Auburn. As well as Auburn's played, nice win at LSU last week. I do not think they got the kind of firepower to even stay in the game against Georgia. Do you?
Well, what team is Auburn bringing? Are they bringing the one that, played at Penn State in the whiteout?
Yeah.
Are they bringing the one that went to LSU? I mean, this is a Jekyll and Hyde team. I like them. I'm hoping, but I think what everybody's looking at is they want Georgia and Alabama on a collision course, 1-2, kind of like what we saw with Alabama and Clemson those years.
Yeah. And another interesting game this weekend, by the way, a top 10 team, BYU has jumped, from nowhere. They were in the 40s 3 weeks ago to number 10 in the country against a disappointing Boise State team. BYU is going to keep it rolling this week. Well,
other than Tennessee's field, Boise State has a heck of a field, man. That blue and orange. Is that going to be the top two fields you've ever seen? Tennessee and Boise State.
Yeah. You know what? Besides the field, and that was a novelty in the beginning, and that Boise State showed they could play some real football.
Oh, yeah.
Boise State's the one that brought the group of 5 teams into the conversation about whether they should be in the playoff or not. And, I don't think the big guys don't want one of these Cinderella teams getting in the playoff. They just don't want that. If they make it, if Cincinnati makes it this year or BYU makes it this year, you're going to see the expanded playoff next year.
Well, not only that, you're talking about 3 schools we just brought up, Alabama, Washington, and Boise State, and you with that nice exclusive interview with Skip Hall. It just falls in threes here talking about these 3 universities.
He's a great guy, great coach, and tremendous person. Yeah. If you guys haven't watched the Skip Hall interview, and I know you've had him on, I think a couple of your broadcasts too.
You did a great job, my friend.
Wonderful guy, and I'd have him on anytime. Get out and get his book, Coach Him Up, the Skip Hall story. Don't forget me.
Teach him up, not down.
Don't forget. That's right. Don't forget me, Skip, when I keep plugging that book for you. Let's see what else. We got anything else for Notre Dame? Only fell to 14. And they're going to Virginia Tech. I'll tell you what, Notre Dame could lose again this week.
Yeah, this could be another one, And then what are we going to hear? We're going to hear a coach with the most victories at Notre Dame. But let's wait another year for a national title. And I don't, when I look at Notre Dame, let's be realistic here. I don't see Notre Dame winning a national title at least for the next 2-3 seasons.
Probably a good call. Listen, so we talked about some of the top 25 games. Before we lose you, I want to talk about a couple other quick topics. First thing, we're getting to that time of year where we're talking about coaches whose seats are getting hotter than others. I'm going to give you a couple of names that I think are in big trouble. I mentioned Dan Mullen earlier. I don't think Dan Mullen's in trouble, even with a loss to Kentucky and maybe some losses to come, because they were looked at as being in a rebuilding year anyway. So I don't think, unless he takes another job, I don't think he's in any trouble. But Ed Orgeron, I think, is in big trouble at LSU. The AD is not the guy that hired him. The AD likes big names, and you're going to see him go after one, I think, in this offseason. And Manny Diaz at Miami, two names I can think of right off the top of my head who are in really big trouble right now.
Well, the first one, and I think the hot seat will be there, but I think it would be a mutual, moving on would be Jim Harbaugh. If this team stumbles down the stretch, they don't beat Ohio State and they don't get in that top 4, he could be, saying, you know what, I'm going to move on. That would be the first guy. The second guy, I would have to say, and I thought this from the get-go would have to be probably you'd have to look at would be Shaw from Stanford, wouldn't you say? Because, there's another one, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, you beat USC. Yeah, you punched Oregon in the mouth. But there's a lot of talent, and I just can't see, those. I think it'd be another one of those where Stanford, when he just kind of move on and say, you know what, I've had enough here at Stanford. Could you see those two?
I think David Shaw is going to get more leash than some of these other guys we talked about. But Harbaugh, you never know what he's going to do. They could win the NCAA championship, but he could move on because he just wants to go coach the Cowboys. I don't know. You never know, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of. The other thing with Orgeron though, and again, I keep reading that the LSU AD really wants to make a big splash. Why everybody's in love with Jimbo Fisher. He wants Jimbo Fisher, but I don't know why.
Well, here's the other one. Here's another one, and nobody's talking about it. We'll break it here. Keep your eyes on Urban Meyer. He's turned around Utah, Florida, Ohio State. And, the lap dances in Columbus aren't cutting it with the Jaguars.
No,
he could be standing there saying, enough's enough. Let me get back into college football.
It may not be his choice either. They may just cut him loose. And I don't know if some of these big-name colleges are going to take a chance on him, because this isn't Urban's first slip-up, right? And I mean, this is his first lap dance that I know of on video. Maybe he's had others.
But here's the thing.
But he had the issues at Ohio State, covering up for the coach with the spousal abuse. He's had the Florida stuff going on with all the police
Hernandez.
reports. The Hernandez situation going on right under his nose. I mean, he doesn't pay. I mean, there's institutional control issues wherever Urban Meyer goes. He wins, but he'd be a big name for LSU. That's for sure.
Well, you look at coaches and that went to the NBA or went to the NFL. Case in point, Calipari and Pitino couldn't do anything in the NBA, and you saw what they did in college. The same thing with Nick Saban. He said, "Hey, this ain't working here at Miami. I'm getting the hell out of here." And you saw what he's done at Alabama. So maybe the top college coaches are finding out, we can't, these pros aren't listening to us. They're not buying into what we're doing here. And that's the problem. Jerry Tarkanian was another one. Tried to go with the Spurs. It lasted 14 games, and you know what the rest is. He was an icon at UNLV. Yeah,
I think you and I are Sunday in the Stream of Consciousness show in your segment. We're going to dive into this Urban Meyer thing a little deeper. So get prepared for that. Listen, one last thing on the Ed Orgeron thing. One thing that may keep him in his job is I also read he's got a $21 million buyout. So that might keep him in his job, but it's not like they probably don't have the money at LSU.
Well, I got to know Ed, when he was out here, great guy, rough voice. I mean, he could probably do voiceovers if he ain't coaching college. But what I liked is he buys, he creates the player culture there. He knows how to recruit. It's a tough conference what he's in, and maybe you put him in another school out here on the West Coast. Who knows what? He'll probably build wonders out here. I mean, that's a death march out there in the SEC territory. But, he delivered a national championship. I know it's what have you done for me lately, but I think he's a great coach. And look what he did to, Joe Burrow. And Burrow, had problems with Urban Meyer, didn't want to go there and came down. And you saw what Ed Orgeron did there. So I think he'll resurface. That's a heck of a buyout. But give him a Pac-12 school, and I'll tell you, they'll be dragging him on, King of the Ring. Yeah,
I agree. And Orgeron will get a job if he gets fired, I think. You're right. There's a school that's going to gobble him up somewhere. Maybe it won't be a Power 5 team. Who knows? But he'll get a job right away. And Kenny brings up a good. I did see this mentioned. This name floated for LSU as well. Yeah, it's Kiffin. I'm sure he means here.
Yeah.
I have seen Lane Kiffin's name floated with the LSU job as well. So that'd be an interesting.
Kiffin's the one guy that can't stay in a city long enough to try the food.
It's like he's got ants in his pants, right? It's going to be interesting.
I don't know what it is. Maybe his wife doesn't like these cities they're in. They just keep moving all the time. Kind of reminds me of Roberto Luongo when he was the goalie of Vancouver. He said, "I want to get back to Florida. My wife doesn't like Vancouver."
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think he keeps the plane running all the time. Didn't he resign in Tennessee while he was on a plane on the tarmac?
He goes month to month with the rent. It's no leases.
I know. Good grief. It's funny as hell. Let's I know we're going to lose you here in a couple of minutes, so let's move on to our where's my banner? Mark, did you mess with my banners before you came in here today? Because they're not where I left them. Damn it.
No, I wouldn't.
All right. Anyway, we're going to move on to our dead solid what am I talking about? Dead solid lock. What's your dead solid lock pick for the weekend?
I think Utah's going to beat USC in the Coliseum. I think that's my dead solid pick.
I will give you Iowa over Penn State at home. That's going to be my dead solid lock. And what about, don't be surprised if we see what, Mark?
Virginia Tech beating Notre Dame.
There's a good one.
Surprised.
I'm going to tell you, don't be surprised when Nebraska win the game late at home against Michigan and they storm the field in Lincoln. Sorry, Jim Harbaugh.
I hate to leave your show, but I got to put on my bulletproof vest.
I do.
Get on the freeways and try to escape these LA maniacs, man.
Listen, put all the tactical gear on. Don't just put on the vest. Put on the helmet. Put on everything, dude. I need you. I don't need you getting shot at by all those haters.
I know. I got to be available for Sunday.
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't want to be reading a eulogy here Sunday morning.
We'll see you bright and early for you anyway. Sunday morning.
I love you dearly. The best show, the show that's sweeping the country, my friend. Your show.
Excellent. Yes, we're on against Jeopardy right now, so we got to really get it going. Thanks a lot, Mark. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. His show will be starting in Philadelphia at the end of the month, by the way, so that ought to be some fun. So we'll cover some more stuff while we're here. What else we got going on here? Kenny's got a couple of – did Kenny have comments I missed? I think I might have touched on them all. Anthony had talked about Maryland losing their running back, I believe. Yes, I believe they did. You're agreeing with Kenny. We read that. Let's see what else we got. What else did I miss? Notre Dame's just a good football play. You know what? I agree. They need to play Pine, Kenny. I like Brian Kelly. And Kenny, I sense you don't. I'm not sure yet. I don't know if you've ever said outright you don't like Kelly. He hasn't won a national championship, and he's very honest with the fact that he's the winningest coach at Notre Dame who's never won a national championship. So he's got that around his neck. He's made the wrong decision with his quarterback. He might have beat Cincinnati last week if he played Pine the whole game. He's got an offensive line that can't protect anybody. He needs a quarterback that's mobile. And Pine gives him that, I think. What else we got here? Shut your mouth, Mark. That must have been about the Notre Dame pick. I don't know for sure. Oh, there's Mickey Delaney. Didn't get a chance to get you on when I saw you there. Mickey, good morning, good reef, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Jeff, how are you tonight? Good to have you with us from Tampa, home of Tom Brady. This is a college football show tonight, but kudos to Brady on his return to New England. Enough said about that. All right, guys, what else we want to cover here tonight? I want to talk about a couple things before I get on to some of the other the coaches' polls and some other things. I want to talk about I talked about what did I talk about? Manny Diaz being in trouble at Miami. I didn't talk about the fact that Mike Norvell's probably in trouble at Florida State. But what is going on with two storied programs in such a state of decline? I've got a couple theories. And you guys can feel free to put up your comments about these theories or about the situation in general. I mean, Florida State did win a national championship in 2016, I guess, with Jameis Winston and Jimbo Fisher before Fisher absconded for the money in Texas A&M. Hasn't done a tremendous job there, by the way. But these two schools, Miami hasn't been relevant. I don't think Miami's been ranked in the top 10. I had this number here somewhere. Oh, gosh, let me see if I can find it. Miami has been ranked in the top 10 since like 2005. I mean, these teams were staples of the powers of college football through much of the 70s, late 70s, 80s, 90s. Now they're nearly irrelevant. I don't even know if Miami's a good job anymore. I don't even know if Florida State's a good job anymore. And one of my theories is Florida is just a great recruiting territory, recruiting ground for all the schools. And with the SEC so strong, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, even Auburn, Mississippi, Kentucky, and then you got Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC. The recruiting, this fertile recruiting territory has dried up for Miami and Florida State. They can't keep these kids home. They either go north of Florida, maybe, or they get out of state altogether, and they're in Alabama, they're in Auburn, they're in Georgia, or they come north. You don't need to go to Florida State or Miami to be on TV every week. Every game's on. And I think this has hurt these two schools a lot. It's the fact that they can't keep the Florida recruits home. And I don't know what the answer is going to be for turning these guys around, because I'm not sure that they can get the top level coaching that they're going to want to get. Manny Diaz is in trouble at Miami. When Mark Richt retired, and Miami, after they won a national championship under Larry Coker, Miami went through a bunch of coaches. They went through Randy Shannon. They went through Al Golden. They went through, I'm missing somebody, Mark Reich, who did okay, but never got higher than like finishing 14th, 12th or 14th in the country. He retired after Manny Diaz had gone to Temple, and Miami wanted him so bad they paid a $4 million buyout to get him out of his Temple deal. He'd have been better off in Temple. Defense is his forte. The defense is awful. Just awful. To get beat by a middling Virginia team at home. They barely beat Appalachian State at home. Appalachian State's a good team, but they gotta be playing better football than this. Killed, not even representative against Alabama. That's Mark. I don't know what the answer is for Florida and Miami, but they need to do something to turn this around so they can keep these kids at home. And maybe it takes a big name coach, but who are they going to get? Mark mentions Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's not coaching again in college, not after this whole fiasco in Jacksonville. I don't think he's even going to last a season in Jacksonville. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that Sunday, as I said. But I just don't see, how these teams are going to get themselves turned around without something major happening that keeps these kids home. And it may take a big name coach to come in there to make that happen. I just don't know. And it's a shame, because I think college football is better when they're good. Kenny, I did leave that. I apologize. The note I had, I forgot about UCF specifically. UCF has gotten much better. So it's not just the kids leaving the state. You're right. Thank you for pointing that out to me. And UCF's only going to get more of those kids when they go to the Big 12. I mean, they're out recruiting Florida State and Miami, two ACC schools. UCF's out recruiting them now for kids in Florida when they're playing in the AAC. Really good league. But now they're going to be going to the Big 12, a Power 5 conference. And they're going to get that much more. That many more good recruits. Good point, Kenny. I had that in my notes. I don't know how I missed that. But excellent point. And I guess you could even say, not this year. South Florida's in a disaster right now. But when Lane Kiffin was at Florida Atlantic, he was getting some of the kids there. So UCF, by the way, is a sleeping giant. When they get to the Big 12, they're having a little bit of a down year this year. But I think they got the right fit with Gus Malzahn there as their head coach after some really good years with Josh Heupel and Scott Frost. but they're moving to a Power 5 conference. They've got money at that school where they're building facilities that kids want, workout rooms, practice facilities, everything that is going to be top notch and as good as any Power 5 school you can think of. UCF is going to have. And that is an awesome point, Kenny, that you bring up there. So thank you for catching me on that. So again, I don't know. It's a shame to watch these two programs in the disarray that they're in, but it's kind of where we're at. Another thing I want to chat about before I jump into some of the games I like this weekend and whatnot. I've been reading this a lot. We're hating Cinderella. Everybody couldn't wait for Cincinnati to finally play a representative schedule and get their chance to be considered for the playoff, really considered for the playoff. And as soon as they are, the big schools are already trying to talk them down. Everybody wants Cinderella. People love Cinderella in college basketball. College football, they want to see Alabama. Everybody talks about the fact that, it's the same 4 teams every year, but it's not. LSU just won 2 years ago. It's not the same 4 teams every year. Iowa's been there. Washington's been there. Yes, Alabama's there every year. Clemson's been there every year since 2015 or whatever. And yes, Kenny, sorry, Dabo Swinney's a great coach. But everybody hates Cinderella in football. They don't want that. They talk about it until they get it. And to me, I love rooting for the underdogs. If Cincinnati or BYU somehow get in the playoff this year, you'll see the 12-team playoff in play next year. And then you'll have another faction who will probably be screaming if they don't get in, and we're going to get the 12-team playoff next year anyway. I hope so, because I don't want to wait 5 years to see that put into play. College football is so far behind, so far in the dark ages as far as this playoff goes, that they have got to make this move. And not 5 years from now. TV contracts or no TV contracts. Contracts are made to be broken, right? It's got to happen now. And I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. Everybody loves a Cinderella in basketball and they don't want it in football because the Cinderella teams in basketball that get into the NCAA tournament aren't keeping a more deserving team out. Maybe an 18 and 14 team on the bubble or whatever, but nobody cares. But in college football, you let Cincinnati in, you're going to leave out an Ohio State, a Penn State, a Georgia. Somebody's going to get left out of the dance. Probably not Georgia this year, but because I can't see any way Alabama and Georgia aren't going to be there. But that's why I think they don't like Cinderella in football. Because it keeps what they think is a more deserving team out. And I've said a couple of times, I don't really care. If I'm going to see a blowout in the first round, what do I care whether it's Notre Dame getting blown out by Alabama or whether it's BYU getting blown out by Alabama? Give somebody a chance. That's why I'm excited about the 12 teams. I'm going to go to 16. Go to 16. I'm a broken record, right? Go to 16. Give every single FBS conference division or conference winner a pass to the conference or into the playoffs. And then you've still got at least 5 wild cards at larges. It works. It really does work, guys. And I think that's what we ought to be doing here. So I was going to get into the Heisman talk. We'll talk about that next week. I want to look at some other stuff. Let's look at, I want to look at the, even though Kenny, I know you don't like these polls, but we're going to look at them anyway, because I like to look at who's moving up and down. And it should only be a couple of weeks. We're going to have the first playoff. Let's see. Let's see if I can give you a date on that. First, can't type because I got something over my hand here. first college football playoff rankings. Let's see if I can get a date. 2021 rankings release schedule. Here we go. Perfect. Come on. The first rankings will be, not till November 2nd. We still got a bunch of time to go yet. We got a comment up here. Let's see what we got. Kenny Gifford. 16 would be awesome, right, Kenny? Do you like that? By the way, I'm probably going to get myself sued again because the last time I went through this whole thing, I broke down the whole scenario for my playoff scenario. I went through, the leagues and given each one of them a bye into the playoff, and then you had 5 at-larges, and I had some guy on YouTube message me that he was suing me for a copyright infringement because he wrote a book about this, I don't know, 2012. And the guy told me to cease and desist talking about it. Well, here I am talking about it again. And I will continue to talk about it because guess what? Every talking head in college football world has talked about a 16-team playoff ad nauseum for decades. So I don't think we're stealing any intellectual property. And this is the way the NCAA should go. The 12 teams is a good step in the right direction. It might give a little bit too much leeway with 6 at-large teams and 6 automatic entries. But it wouldn't necessarily be the power conferences to get those top 6 entries. It'd be the either 5 or 6 highest rated conference winners would get those buys. See what else you got here, Kenny. The polls do not give the mids their dues. Well, let's take a look at that quick, Kenny, since you bring that up. I agree with you, but I don't agree with you necessarily. This year, you got Cincinnati is at number 6. Now, I've talked all year about how the polls have been unfair to Cincinnati because they started at 8. And when the season started, they'd had Oregon go by them. They had Notre Dame go by them. They had Ohio State go by them. They had somebody else too went by them, and Iowa went by them. They've had 5 teams go by them. Now they finally move up a couple of spots to 6. So again, they're not getting totally ignored. Brigham Young's at 10. Coastal Carolina is at 15. And that's probably going to do it. SMU's at 24. So you got 5 teams in the top 25. That's not awful. Kenny wrote a book, How to Get Sued. Don't sue me for having a guy threaten to sue me, Kenny. What's Jeff saying? We're just going to say that. Everyone talks about the playoffs. He can sue me too. I know. Oh, God. I went back and forth with this guy. I hope he's watching tonight. I really do. Let me get back to my I got to find the right banner. I get too many banners up today. I think Mark got rid of a bunch of them on me. I don't know where the heck they went. Let's just put this one up for now. Stick with the poll for now. So I'm glad you guys agree with me. This guy, I swear to God, he said he was gonna find me. I said, well, look, go to my Facebook page. My address is right there. I'll send you my card. You can find me, sue me. My God. Now you guys are going to be co-defendants now with me because you agree with me, and you shouldn't be talking about his intellectual property that way without giving him just due. I don't remember his name, and I wouldn't mention if I did. What a nut job, honest to God. Big movers. Let's look at the big movers in the poll. In the top 10, Brigham Young, as I mentioned a minute ago, up 5 spots to 10. This team's prime position to move up and contend potentially if some of these top teams falter. It's unlikely. Iowa at 3 is going to falter, though, because their chance of falters this week against Penn State. Kenny, I know you like them. I do like Iowa to get by this, and if Iowa gets by this, I can't see any way they aren't going to be undefeated in the Big Ten championship game against maybe Penn State, maybe Ohio State, maybe Michigan. Let's see. Kenny's talking about the poll, but what I mean is just for now, Coastal Carolina is what, 15 and. No, it'll be tough though. But the problem is, nobody will play Coastal Carolina, and again, that's not their fault, right, Kenny? I think I get what you're saying. I mean, they're undefeated. They can't be a top 10 team though with the schedule they played, and the problem is nobody will play them. And with this and with the realignment that keeps going on with the SEC getting bigger, even in 2012 when everybody migrated to the Big Ten and to the SEC that time, and you had a slingshot effect where it affected the Big 12 and they had to bring teams in there, and it affected the ACC and they had to bring teams in there. The Big East went away. With these bigger conferences, there's going to be less opportunities for the Coastal Carolinas to get a game with the Power 5 conferences. But again, if we go to if we go to the theory about 16-team playoff and every FBS champion gets in the playoff, Coastal Carolina of the world will get their chance, Kenny. That's why I want to take these polls out of play. The polls will still come into play with the at-larges, but who cares? At that point, the best team should get those at-large bids. All the mid-majors will have a chance to get in by winning their league. That is what happened to Boise State. People stopped playing them. Now they're not as good because they don't recruit as good. And Boise State was its own worst enemy in a way. I was going to talk about it tonight, but I don't think I will. I might yet. The Mountain West was, there was a lot of talk about Boise State and Air Force and Wyoming, San Diego State, possibly going to the AAC after those teams leave for the Big 12. They're not going to do anything. So Boise State is kind of stuck in a league without, since BYU left there especially, no other good team. San Diego State's pretty good at times. But now nobody will play them because they got a reputation for winning big games ever since. I remember I think, if I'm not mistaken, their first big victory was that Fiesta Bowl win over Oklahoma with the Statue of Liberty play. Kenny, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I got to also give you kudos for something. Yeah, see earlier statement. I agree. Kenny, I got to give you kudos on something. You mentioned playoff teams getting ripped off in the playoff, and you had said that Penn State one year didn't get in at winning the Big Ten and Ohio State finishing second. You were absolutely right. I was wrong on that. I don't know how I missed that. But great call there. Excellent call. Other big movers. Michigan up to number 8 from number 14, 6 big spots. Ohio State moves back up into the top, inside the top 10 at 7. They moved up 3 spots. Cincinnati, as I said, moved up 2. Penn State up 2 to 4. Iowa up 2. Iowa and Penn State have come in from outside the top 25 to get up here. So that's, again, Coastal Carolinas of the world can't do that, right? The AAC must be pretty good. Navy's a member and have a third toughest schedule, even in the country, and even a down year for them so far. Navy's had a tough time, Jeff, for the last couple of years, but I do think they'll get out of it. Coach Ken, I cannot say his last name, as I say every week, is a great football coach, and they'll be good. And the AAC is a really good league. Right now, they got Cincinnati and SMU in the top 25. SMU's undefeated. Very good chance SMU gets to that championship game undefeated against Cincinnati. Going to be very interesting to see what happens there. You got Houston, which is really good there. You got Memphis, which is struggling a little bit the last few weeks, but has had some big wins the last few years. You got UCF. You've got Tulsa, not so good, but it has been good in the past, and some other teams. The problem is, Jeff, the AAC is about to get much weaker because in a couple of years, Cincinnati and UCF and Houston are upping and leaving for the Big 12. I love the AAC. You guys hear me talk about it every week. It's my favorite conference. That's probably the Indy Lions were dying. That's probably the year that Kenny was talking about. I don't know if they beat Ohio State. Yeah, they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, right? And they left Penn State out, took Ohio State. Why is Michigan that high? Well, you know what? Because they're Michigan, number one. They are 5-0. I wouldn't put them that high, Kenny, because as I said to you, as you and I agree on, I think they're going to go to Nebraska and possibly lose the game to a resurging Nebraska team. Nebraska's been finding their identity the last month, and I kept saying before last week that they just needed to find a way to win games. They just got beat by Oklahoma. They just got beat by Michigan State. Well, they put it all together last week and beat Northwestern, who's not the little sisters of the poor anymore. Kenny says pretty much all the mid-majors, and I just said that they don't get credit. Pretty much all the mid-majors. I'm not sure. No, I agree. But again, Kenny, let's get our 16-team playoff in there, and it won't matter. The good mid-majors will all be in the playoff. And the rankings won't matter except for the at-larges. See what else we got going on here. I got to agree about Michigan, though. Oregon, they dropped, I'm a little surprised Oregon didn't drop farther. They dropped from number 3 to 9 after losing to Stanford. Oregon's got the win against Ohio State, but I'm just not even sure they can navigate the rest of the season undefeated. And if they got one loss, I just don't see them getting consideration for a playoff over a one-loss Big Ten team, unless it's Ohio State. Certainly not an undefeated Iowa or an undefeated Penn State. They're not going to go over a one-loss Georgia or Alabama team. They shouldn't go over an undefeated Cincinnati team. Oh, the AAC. Oh, well, I got you now. So Kenny's saying pretty much they're all mid-majors, right? All these group of 5 teams are mid-major teams in the eyes of the NCAA. And a great league. Look at SMU keeps on winning. That team's going to get pushing close to the top 10 before the season's out. If Cincinnati and SMU both win out to the I'm not sure that they can now that I think about it. I'll have to take a look at the schedule. If they both win out, they can't get to the AAC championship game undefeated because I think they will play each other at some point during the year. But still, great team. It's a great league. They probably wouldn't get in that large in that 16-team scenario, so they'd only get their conference winner. But I'm okay with that. You take the 11 best conference winners. And then I'm okay with a Georgia or Alabama, the SEC runner-up. I'm okay with the Big Ten runner-up. I'm okay with the Big 12 runner-up. People worry that it'll be all SEC teams. Well, maybe that's a problem, and maybe it's got to be looked at, but I don't think so. Michigan State moves up 5. They're up to number 11. Another team outside the top 25 pushing the top 10. So right now in the top 10, we talked about rankings, and I talked about how unfair the preseason rankings are. You got some teams that moved up pretty quick. Major colleges, I get it, Kenny. Mid-majors can't move up that quick. I get you. although BYU did. You got Iowa, you got Penn State, you got Michigan, and BYU, all in the top 10, all ranked outside the top 25 to start the season. And we're only week 6, approaching week 6. Oklahoma State up 6. Watch out for Oklahoma State in the Big 12. I think they're going to be the sneaky champion in that league. Who knows how things break? If they end up undefeated, could be in the playoff conversation. If they end up undefeated, that'll mean they will have beaten Texas. They will have beaten Oklahoma. They will have beaten Iowa State. They already beat Baylor. Long way to go, though. Notre Dame dropped 6 spots to 13. I'm not sure what to make of Notre Dame. I'm really not. Kenny, you didn't give me an answer about your my Brian Kelly question, but Brian Kelly right now needs to pick the right quarterback. As Kenny said, it should be Pine. Kentucky, big surprise. Again, another team out of the top 25, not even in the top 50, I don't think, to start the season. They're up 9-14. Really good Kentucky team. Mark Stoops is a really, really, really good coach. 64 teams in basketball, name one smaller school that has won it. Football has 16, and we'll show who is the best. I agree. There has been smaller schools that have had a chance to win it, Kenny. It's not like, you've seen Loyola Chicago get to the Final Four. You've seen George Mason get to the Final Four. You've seen Virginia Commonwealth get to the Final Four. You saw Butler a few years back get to the Final Four and almost have a chance to win at the buzzer against Duke. So if maybe you're saying they do have a chance to win. Or you're telling me the name of school. So I think a lot of smaller schools have had a chance to win the championship. Usually the cream rises to the top. We get all the upsets in the basketball tournament in the first couple of days, first 2 rounds, and then things, return to form. Kenny thinks Brian Kelly's okay. Well, they don't win it, but they had a chance to win it. But Kenny, be honest. Cincinnati, BYU, maybe. Coastal Carolina is not winning a national championship, even if we go to 16 teams. It'll be the same thing. You'll get an upset in the first round here or there. But I don't see the Coastal Carolinas winning at all. I think they should have that opportunity. But I don't think they're going to win at all. A great story, Jeff. Texas El Paso. They're in the ACC too, right? Let me just double check. I believe they're in they're going to fight for that league championship now that we talk about it. What are they? No, I thought they were in the. Where are they? Could have swore they were in the ACC. Must be in the. Conference USA. I think you mean. Well, I don't want to speak for you. I'm talking. Texas San Antonio, I think, is a better team than UTEP, but they're both playing pretty good football. Texas El Paso, right? 2 good teams. Oh, you're talking about the teams that won in the basketball. Sorry, guys. Texas El Paso did win in the 60s. First team, Don Haskins had the first team to actually start 5 African-American players against an all-white Kentucky team and actually beat them, one of the bigger upsets in NCAA history. Again, you've had small schools throughout history get there with a chance to win. Yeah, I figured that out now. Thank you, Jeff. Sorry, I had my mind on football. Those teams do have a chance to get to the Final Four. And again, some have been in position to win. Butler, 1 shot away from beating Duke not that long ago. What else we got here in the top? We're at 20 after 8. Talked about Kentucky. Coastal Carolina moves up 1. Arkansas drops 5. Mississippi drops 5. Florida, the big dropper of the week, 9 spots to 18. Florida's not that good. Florida gave Alabama a good run, and I think Alabama just had an off week because Florida's really in a rebuilding year. Auburn at 4-1 moves up 3 spots. Team to watch out for in the ACC. We've talked about him here a lot, not just because Larry Sorensen, my good friend Larry Sorensen, is a color commentator, but this is a good football team, a good, deep, experienced football team who I think even next year will return all 11 starters. They're 5-0 in the Atlantic division of the ACC and very well could go to the ACC championship game. It's going to be very interesting. They're up 5 spots this week to 20. Clemson drops another 2, even though they get a victory this week. They should be out of the top 25. So I will tell you that this year Clemson's overrated. Kenny. North Carolina State with a jump up 6 spots. Texas up 3. Southern Methodist up 8. Tell you, watch out for this team. This will be the next team that jumps up a lot. And Arizona State, who is all over the board, they just dropped about 12 places last week. They jumped 12 places this week to back into the top 25. Teams that fell out, Texas A&M, huge disappointment. Texas A&M, no quarterback, no offense to speak of. And Jimbo Fisher, they just keep giving them more money. UCLA, very disappointing. Chip Kelly's going to find himself in trouble out there if he's not careful. Fresno State falls out, and Baylor, who had just moved in. And I will say yes to I will second Kenny's comment here. Great call, Jeff, on the UTEP. Let's take a quick look as we're going to run out of time here soon. Let's look at this week's schedule, shall we? We talked already about some of the big games. I gave you the teams I like. I want to look at some of the other games outside the top 25 because, as Kenny very appropriately puts it, there are many teams outside the top 25 that are going to play football this weekend. I think a very entertaining game potentially is Houston at Tulane. Tulane's only 1-4, but they gave Oklahoma all they could handle at Norman early in the season. Houston's a good football team. 2 AAC teams, battling out here. Cincinnati will get Temple. Got to be careful here if I'm Cincinnati. I don't think there's any danger that they're going to lose this game. But again, Temple's 3-2, playing much better in recent weeks. And I think that they have to be, Cincinnati's got to be a little careful that they don't just take them for granted here. We talked about that game. If there's any games you guys want to talk about, oh, by the way, if you remember last week, we had a new viewer who really needed a information from me and a pick on the Rice Southern Miss game. And I told him my advice would be don't pick it. But I told him to take Rice in the points at home, and Rice did win. So, Kenny, you're retired. You got to go to bed already? Thanks for stopping in, Kenny. Thanks for participating, as always. Glad to have you, buddy. We had a lot of fun. I love this show. I love this Wednesday night show. My wife doesn't love it so much, but I do. Michigan State's going to travel to Rutgers. Rutgers, yeah. You know what? This is a spot Rutgers could potentially surprise some people. They got killed by Ohio State last week, but they're not a bad football team. Greg Schiano has got this team back to where it was when Greg Schiano was there originally. We talked about Alabama, Ole Miss. This is a big game for both these teams. A big game for Matt Corral and his Heisman hopes, I think. I think you're going to see a big game out of him this weekend, and I think you'll see Ole Miss prevail in this game. Florida, Vanderbilt, nobody cares. Tennessee and Florida, or South Carolina, sorry. Tennessee playing better football. of late. They're 3-2, and probably not a lot of interest outside of South Carolina and Tennessee in this game. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that back up. West Virginia Baylor, kind of an interesting game in the Big 12. West Virginia's had some big wins and some big losses, and Baylor shocked everybody by beating Iowa State a couple of weeks ago, and then they get beat by Oklahoma State last week. Then we'll get to them in a second here. I don't care about that. Georgia Tech and Duke, nobody cares. Old Dominion Marshall, nobody cares. Virginia, Louisville, could be an interesting game in the ACC. Louisville's got their offense rolling. Nice win for Wake Forest over Louisville last week. A bit controversial with some clock management by the referees at the end of that game. But Wake Forest comes away with a win. Georgia Auburn could be closer than people think at Auburn. We'll see how that goes. Syracuse, Dave Guyette, don't know if you're still with us. Syracuse is going to have a tough time against Wake Forest this weekend, but different things have happened. More surprising things have happened. SMU visits Navy. We like to talk about the Naval Academy and all the armed forces teams. SMU is probably going to have their way with Navy this week, sadly enough. I like SMU and I like Navy both, but I think this is going to be an easy win for SMU. Florida State, North Carolina. Carolina's very Jekyll and Hyde, but they should have their way with Florida State here. UConn, Mac, if you're still with us, I think UConn will get beat by Mass. That powerhouse Massachusetts football team. What else we got? San Jose State and Colorado State. Colorado State struggling with all facets of the game. Usually they've been a very competitive team, and they just have not been recently. San Jose State, not as good as last year, but it should be a competitive game. We talked about Iowa, Penn State. I love Iowa to win this game. I really do. UCF's got East Carolina in an AAC game. Again, UCF's not quite playing quite as well as years past, but I like UCF in this game. TCU, Texas Tech, two teams that are way up and down. Texas Tech is a 4-1, but their one loss was to Texas, and they got killed. Air Force gets Wyoming. This will be an interesting game. 4-0 Wyoming at 4-1 Arizona. Big game in the Mountain West. Nebraska at Michigan. Michigan at Nebraska. I'm liking Nebraska to have a chance to upset the Wolverines here. LSU, I think, will get beat again at Kentucky. Ed Orgeron is in big trouble. $21 million buyout or not. Texas A&M looked like this was going to be a big game against Alabama. A&M is just not playing good football. It'll probably be an easy win for Alabama here. UCLA, Arizona, we talked about, and that kind of covers it, guys. We got a lot to talk about next week, too. Still some topics we didn't get to talk about this week. I wanted to talk more about the Mountain West. I wanted to talk about the Heisman. We didn't get a chance. But there's no shortage of time. The college football season will continue, and we will be here to cover it every step of the way. Next week, I'll be live right here at 7 o'clock Eastern time again. We'll have Mark Mancini with us. I hope to get Larry Sorensen on to talk again about Wake Forest. And before I'm on vacation, we'll talk about how we'll try to do something. It's going to be hard for me to hear me over that. We'll try to do something that Wednesday. It'll be a very short show if I can do it. Maybe we'll come on. We'll just have a quick conversation. Maybe go back and forth with some comments, as I will be away and in the middle of the ocean. But we're going to try to do something for even 20 or 30 minutes Wednesday night in 2 weeks. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. College Football Huddle right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. We'll see you later.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.